Last October, the Rudd government announced it would adopt a concept pioneered by the French in the 1920s and since adopted in many other countries, and give Australian artists the right to a share of the spoils every time their work is resold. The plan was to put a royalty scheme in place by the middle of this year, but a row has broken out over the model that's been chosen, with some claiming it's deeply flawed. Danielle Parry reports.
These students are learning their craft at the National Art School in inner Sydney. They're fine-tuning their skills and learning from the experts. But despite their obvious passion and talent, most can't make a living from their art.
I am a full-time artist, but I do have to work to survive, pay the bills. So I have a background in IT, which I left 3 years back, which was a full-time career, and I just have to go back into it from time to time to service my bills.
Archibald Prize winner Wendy Sharp is one of the few who makes enough to devote herself to art full-time. But she's struggled too and knows how hard it can be for most artists to make ends meet.
I am lucky because I get living from it, which is rare, but it took me a long time before I could do that. For a long time I was always having to do another job, and it's just like most artists.
Right down the middle and seal it on.
But Australian artists are about to get a new financial lifeline. They're being promised a share of the spoils every time their work is resold. A radical shake-up that will change the way the art industry does business.
It's about creating an income stream in the future for artists. As a musician, I know that royalties sometimes provide you with that ongoing income which helps you deal with the ups and downs of the market.
At 8,500, 9,000, thank you. That's $9,000.
Under the scheme, an artist will receive a 5% royalty payment every time one of their pieces is resold at an auction or gallery for more than $1,000. Dozens of countries have similar royalty programs, and in Australia, the right will last for the artist's life plus 70 years.
I will sell, all done. Congratulations, $12,000.
Getting some percentage of what's happening, even if it's only a tiny percent, would obviously be beneficial, and everyone would love that.
We, in principle, disagree with the scheme. We believe it will be difficult to administer, impossible to regulate, and runs a real danger of affecting a fairly fragile art market at the moment.
At 1,600,000 bidding, 1,650,000.
Auction house Sotheby's wants the scheme abandoned, fearing it will depress the market in tough economic times.
Sold, $2,400,000.
Any additional costs or taxes is actually going to make them think twice about will they actually bid or how much are they actually going to bid for a particular artwork.
What would it mean to you to have a scheme that delivered royalties?
Joanna Cave has just arrived in Sydney to head up Australia's copyright agency.
I think that's right.
She's spent the past 2.5 years administering the UK's new resale royalty scheme and says there's no evidence it put off British buyers.
There isn't a single example of that happening. Buyers have been happy to pay the royalty, money's flowed, art market not damaged.
At 2.9, congratulations, $12,000.
Significantly, the UK art market doubled in value after the right was implemented.
But despite being among the biggest in-principle supporters of a resale royalty right, VisCopy has its own concerns.
As the bill is drafted, it is fatally flawed. And the risk is that it will deliver bureaucracy and no money whatsoever. So there'll be a lose-lose situation.
$24,000 now for the Coburn.
A royalty will only have to be paid on existing works when the piece sells for a second time after the scheme comes in.
4-2, new player, 4-2.
The minister says it's only fair that people know what they're liable for when they buy a piece of art.
4-8.
They need to have the certainty that the work that they're purchasing has this right attached to it.
At $32,000 for the rest of it.
The arts lobby thinks that could take far too long.
At $32,000, even for the bidding at $32,000.
Artworks are not bought and sold willy-nilly all the time. Sometimes an artwork might be bought once, kept for 50 or 60 or 70 years in a collection before it reaches the resale market, or even longer. So some artists won't see any royalties during their lifetime.
The federal government says delivering a fairer deal to Indigenous artists is one of its primary goals.
Indigenous artists have been missing out, so here's an opportunity for Indigenous artists whose work does go up in value to be able to share some benefit of that value in the future, and also for their heirs and successors.
1,000,001, 1,000,001.
But the right will come too late for many Aboriginal painters who sold their work for a pittance decades ago and have since died. Any royalties owed to them will eventually flow to the artist's estate.
Most of you are artists, and you'll have artworks that you can leave to your children or your grandchildren or your...
Lawyers from the Arts Law Centre have been travelling to Aboriginal communities like this one on Melville Island to draw up wills for artists, explaining how they want their royalties distributed.
Each time they sell it, a little bit comes back to you as the artist.
We would hold a little workshop where we'd explain to them what wills were and why they were useful. And inevitably, everybody wanted to have a will drafted.
But some fear extending the right after an artist dies is too complicated to work.
If this scheme is implemented, we really would advocate that it only should apply to living artists, which really, as we understand it, is the real purpose of the legislation announced by the Minister.
I think that we've got the design of this resale royalty scheme right. It delivers for Indigenous people, it delivers for non-Indigenous people. It provides a right for painters, for visual artists, which they never had before.
Danielle Perry with that